Hello folks, last week President Trump signed several executive orders aimed at boosting nuclear power in the US, and right away pretty much the entire nuclear industry rallied hard. And to be honest, I think it's just getting started. In this video, I'll go over what Trump's orders mean for American nuclear power going forward and talk about the strongest stocks from a momentum investing perspective. This means that I'm looking for stocks with good fundamental prospects and whose share price is already on the move. But before we begin, this is for entertainment purposes only and is not financial advice. So there's three main nuclear stocks that I want to focus on today. They are called OKLO, Nanonuclear, and NuScale. I've decided to focus on these stocks because they all exhibit strong momentum investing characteristics, such as a rising stock price and good fundamentals, or at least the promise of good fundamentals in the future. So going back to Trump, what was the meaning of his executive orders exactly? Well, these are his objectives. Accelerate the development, testing, deployment, and export of advanced nuclear reactors, and reform the regulatory and supply chain landscape to favor domestic growth and energy security. So how's the Trump administration going to achieve these goals? Well, the following actions will take things in the right direction. The first is advanced nuclear deployment for national security. The Trump administration wants to use microreactors and SMRs, or small modular reactors, to power military bases and AI critical infrastructure. The Departments of Energy and Defense must site, license, and operate at least one advanced reactor by September 28 for the military and within 30 months for the Department of Energy. These deadlines are within the terms of the current administration, which is probably done on purpose so that it increases the likelihood of them being carried out. To understand how serious this is, watch Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth talk about the importance of these new nuclear reactors to American defense.
Energy security is national security. If we don't have reliable energy for our basing, for our troops, whether forward deployed or domestically, we're vulnerable. So by having small modular nuclear capabilities, which are rapidly being fielded, that we can use on our bases here and around the world, we're creating an environment where if things happen elsewhere, the military can be relied upon. Also, we're including artificial intelligence in everything we do. If we don't, we're not fast enough. We're not keeping up with adversaries. You need the energy to fuel it. Nuclear is a huge part of that, modular or otherwise. So we're gonna have the lights on and AI operating when others do not, faster than everybody else because of nuclear capability. So this is a big game changer for us as well.
Another action is for 20 metric tons of HALEU to be released for authorized commercial projects on DOE sites. Now, HALEU has a higher uranium enrichment level than conventional uranium fuel used in nuclear reactors, but it's much lower than highly enriched uranium, which is used in weapons and applications. As this table shows, HALEU is needed for advanced reactors and SMRs, which this series of executive orders focuses on. Centrus Energy is the first US company to produce it domestically, and Nanonuclear is actually trying to process HALEU as well. I won't talk about Centrus Energy, but I will talk about Nanonuclear in a moment. Now, the second action on the menu is to overhaul current nuclear regulations. The key change here is that licensing decisions at the Nuclear Regulatory Commission have now been capped at 18 months for new reactors and 12 months for renewals, so that regulators cannot drag their feet when it comes to signing off on new reactor projects. This, in combination with reactor testing reform at the DOE, should streamline the approvals process and allow smaller innovative companies like NuScale to quickly get the deployment and commercialization at a cheaper cost. Furthermore, none of this would be viable without a sustainable fuel source, so there is action to encourage more fuel recycling and building of conversion infrastructure so that nuclear fuel is not wasted. This opens the door for companies focusing on recycling and processing enriched uranium like Centrus Energy and Nanonuclear. Finally, the executive orders are trying to foster the US nuclear export industry by encouraging nuclear power across the globe and by pursuing trade agreements for nuclear technology. Of course, this means American reactor manufacturers like OKLO will stand to benefit. The orders also set out explicit deadlines for many of the actions mentioned, with most of them due before Trump ends his current term. So these are not a bunch of wishy-washy goals that may or may not be achieved in the future. President Trump actually has a pretty good track record of setting goals and achieving them. So if history is any guide, I think many of these actions and goals will be achieved before his current term ends. So what does this mean for us as momentum investors? Well, here's a table summarizing the potential winners from these executive orders. I'm focusing on the ones circled because they exhibit the best momentum characteristics. In any new sector, we get an initial bubble followed by a huge crash. The current nuclear bubble only started around 6 months ago, and by my estimation, it could run for another 6 to 12 months based on previous bubbles. Most of the money in this one will be made in the beginning stages, and a lot of the participating companies will either eventually go bankrupt or get swallowed up by bigger ones. This is what happens in most industries. So buying these stocks is a very high risk but potentially high reward exercise. So let's go through these highly speculative stocks one by one. The first on the list is OKLO. OKLO is an innovative pre-revenue small modular reactor developer which doesn't even have Nuclear Regulatory Commission approval for its flagship reactor called Aurora Powerhouse. However, it already has some big customers lined up, such as data center giant Equinix and oil and gas company Diamondback Energy. I won't go through all the details, but if OKLO gets all the approvals it needs, we can expect to see the company build the first commercial Aurora Powerhouse by the end of 2027. Of course, that's still more than a year and a half away, so why is the stock going up so much? I mean, it's gone up 5-fold since October last year. Well, that's because the market is forward-looking. It's pricing in all the future revenue that OKLO may earn if the approvals come through and everything goes to plan. And after Trump signed those executive orders last week, this idea doesn't seem that far-fetched. By the way, Sam Altman of OpenAI and ChatGPT fame still owns 5% of OKLO after being an early investor in the company, and no doubt his name probably helped the company get some of those juicy contracts. Looking at the chart, the stock is definitely a volatile beast, but it looks like it might be setting new all-time highs soon, and if it does, is probably going to keep going, especially if the company gets positive news in the form of more approvals or more contracts. So I wouldn't be surprised if the stock reaches $100 sometime this year. That's not financial advice to buy, it's just my unqualified and highly speculative opinion. Moving on to the next stock, NuScale Power Corporation, ticker symbol SMR. Unlike OKLO, NuScale already has NRC design certification, but like OKLO, it generates negligible revenue and is not expected to make any substantially for a few years. It doesn't have any significant customers yet besides RoPower, which is building a small modular reactor in Romania, so a lot of the price appreciation currently is due to hype, if I'm being totally honest. Regardless, the price is king and the chart shows strong momentum in the price action, which makes SMR look very similar to OKLO in price action, and the stock is about to set a new all-time high as well. Can NuScale get to $100 based on pure hype? Well, it's going to be difficult, but if it gets support in the form of approvals, favorable legislation, etc., I don't see why not. Again, this is not financial advice. NuScale could crash 50% on Monday for all I know. Okay, finally we have Nano Nuclear, ticker symbol NNE. This company is the smallest out of the three, but I included this one because the chart looks so attractive. The price is not as volatile as the other two, but like the other two, it's also on the verge of making new all-time highs. Nano Nuclear is an SMR developer like the other two, but its focus is on much smaller, more portable reactors or microreactors. Interestingly, its product has more niche applications such as rapid deployment in remote military operations and space missions. So this company has a much smaller niche market than the other two I mentioned, but again, I like the fact that its price action has been rock solid so far. Please note, however, that the company is currently being sued by shareholders for securities fraud for misrepresenting their technology, so this stock is probably the riskiest out of all three. So all of these companies don't make any revenue, let alone any earnings, so the only thing that's driving their valuation is pretty much just hype, which sounds really dodgy, and it is dodgy. But at the end of the day, the whole point of investing is to make money, and if there's money to be made here, I'm all for it. And the money in this bubble, and don't get me wrong, this is a bubble, will be made and lost in the first innings, which we're still currently in. If we take a look at the bubble diagram depicted here, we see that in the beginning of a new bubble, prices rise steadily, after which we have a correction circled here. This is what we saw in April with all of the stocks mentioned in this video, with OKLO in particular dropping more than 60%. However, these stocks have resumed their upward move and basically fully recovered all of their losses, and if I'm correct, we're on track for a huge continuation of this rally, which may last months or even years. After this though, things may not be so rosy. Unless these companies start making substantial amounts of money, the market will eventually realize how overvalued they are and start correcting their valuations accordingly, leading to a sharp drop in their stock prices. So it's up to investors to use their discretion when exiting these stocks, because once it rains on the sector, it's going to start pouring, and it could get very messy as everyone tries to get out at the same time. So do you own any of these stocks? If so, let me know in the comments below. Anyway, if you haven't already, please hit the like and subscribe button for more videos like this. Thanks for watching and see you guys next time.